All right, folks, this is a little video about a new watch that I purchased recently from none other than Jeffrey McMahon. I vultured Jeffrey. I didn't intentionally vulture Jeffrey, but what the term vulture is a lexicon term that Jeff and I have joked around. It's specifically about when you're putting something on eBay and people just wait around for you to drop low enough where you get desperate enough to sell. And Jeff made me an offer I couldn't refuse for the Citizen Black Attesa. And so I bought it, and I got it about a week ago, I think. Yeah, late last week. I think the day before Christmas, maybe. Anyways, so yeah, this isn't a proper review. I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but I wanted to show you the Attesa and talk a little bit about it. It's an interesting thing because this is a Japanese domestic market watch. This is a watch that you can't buy in the United States except through the internet. And there are a ton of Citizens and Seikos and probably Orients out there that fit that category. They tend to be, there's a lot that are more in the quote-unquote mid-tier range. These ones are sort of in the lower mid-tier range, the $500 to $1,000 range, which you could almost call like entry mid-tier. And there's a ton of them, and they tend to be with Citizen, they're Echo Drive. This is an Echo Drive watch, meaning it's a solar-powered or a light-powered quartz. I don't think there's no battery that needs to be changed. I don't know about the servicing of a watch like this, but it's a higher technology, right? It's a 21st century watch. This one is made out of titanium. And I am not a big fan of titanium, and this actually watch hasn't really changed my opinion, to be honest. Titanium, for those of you who aren't aware, I'm not a metallurgist, so I can't give you a really technical description, but it's a very high quality metal. It's almost like a high quality aluminum in the sense that it's very light, but it's very strong. Titanium tends to be they tend to scratch really easy. It's soft, but it's very, very light. This one is coated with Duratect, which is Citizen's high-end coating that protects it. So this is a not PVD. This is a DLC coating with Duratect in titanium. So this is a very, very light watch. It's under 100 grams. I don't know the exact weight. I think the listing said 95 grams. By comparison, that is, I think my Breitling Blackbird's probably about 200 grams. It's a heavy. This is a very heavy watch. A little too heavy actually for my preference. I like a watch like the Seamaster. The Seamaster is about 165 grams, I think. That feels like the perfect way. In the 140 to 180 range is ideal. But you know, I'm open to whatever. So it's very light, and titanium is, you know, what it feels like to me. It feels like hard plastic. It doesn't feel like metal. I know it is metal, and maybe a steel, like a silver steel, would feel more like metal. But this to me feels like a ceramic or plastic watch. And actually it makes me realize that one of my all-time favorite all-black watches is the Omega Dark Side of the Moon, which is made of ceramic material. And and cloth strap. I have a feeling that I wouldn't like it, or that would feel too light to me and feel like the ceramic might feel cheap. So it's a weird thing because on one hand, titanium is not cheap. It's technically a superior metal to steel because I think it's as strong. Now somebody can tell me wrong. I think it's as strong, but it's much lighter. So it's a more advanced steel. But to me, I feel like I want a little bit of heft. Just a little bit. All right, well, let's talk about the watch itself. It's It's a pretty cool piece. It's definitely a nice piece. Let me just get the chrono, or the... It's set. I'm not going to go through all the functions, partially because I'm too lazy. All right, there we go. Now this is the second hand. But let's just take a look at what we have here. It's a solid size. Jeff said it wore like a 42. I'm going to have to disagree. At least for me, I think Jeff feels like it wears like a 42 because he likes larger watches. I think Jeff really likes 40, 45 and bigger. And this is a 44. This is you can see on my wrist, it's a nice size for my wrist. It's even a little on the big side, right? Now, of course, the camera net lens isn't going to get the exact, but it's a decent sized watch. It's a large watch. And you can compare it to, say, the Omega Seamaster, which is a 41. Well, not getting quite focused because it doesn't like my hands there, I think. But you can get a sense, there you go, of the size of it. It's a large watch. It's larger than that. It's more similar to the Blackbird. The Blackbird is 44 millimeters. I don't have a caliper, but yeah, it's a 44 millimeter watch. It feels like that to me. It feels like a 44, maybe a 43, but it doesn't feel like a 42 to me. And let's see, the interesting feature, I guess what stands out to this watch is the design of it. It's a very distinct design. And it really, to me, highlights the difference between Japanese watches and Swiss watches. Now, I'm not saying all Japanese and all Swiss, but in general, it has like almost a futuristic quality to it. If you look at the lines, let me see if I can get a better. If I just put it on the. Okay, so there it's focusing a little bit. There you go. So you can see. It's almost got, it's what I would call a high concept watch, meaning that it veers from classic design cues. It's got the case shape has some straight edges. As you can see here, it has this kind of curving quality there, but it's more edgy, more edged than most watches that I've owned. And I've seen a lot of Japanese watches do something like this, where they like to play with interesting architecture. And I think that's one of the things I like about Japanese watches. But it's definitely more angular, and it feels a little bit almost like retro-futuristic, like sort of like what an American 1980s science fiction movie would be saying about the 21st century, the late 21st century. It has that kind of look to it. Whereas if you look at something like the Seamaster, it has a classic quality. The case, the design, it's more curved. It's got more of a almost a jewelry kind of quality. But it definitely has more of a classic, organic feel. Whereas this feels almost more technological. It's hard to explain what I'm trying to get at, but I guess really that's what it comes down to. Is it doesn't feel as organic as the Swiss watches. The design is more futuristic, and I also wonder if that's to some degree just the more Japanese aesthetic, that their watches tend to be more along that line. It's not that they don't have more classic, organic, but they definitely there's a different aesthetic vibe among Japanese watches. So this watch you can buy, I believe that you can buy it new on eBay for $680 or something like that. And you know, it's a really well designed, well built watch. It's not an automatic, but you're getting a very nice quality piece for that kind of money. And you know, as I've said before, if you're looking in that price range, You know, the really under $1,000, Japanese is the way to go. There are some Swiss brands that make watches in that range, like Tissot, Victorinox, Bulova, but I think you're getting more from the Citizens and Seikos. I think you get more watch. This is a bit hard to compare, though, to other watches, because not only is it the PVD, the titanium, it's the Echo Drive movement. It's just a different kind of watch than your more classic automatics. And you know, fit and finish, I can certainly say it's quality fit and finish, but when you're talking about all black, it's a different. You don't get quite the same. You can't. It's harder to determine the fit and finish because it's got this coating, and it doesn't. There might not be like fine brush and polish work, but you have a little bit of that, and it's definitely a cool piece. So I'm at this point. I'm still unsure whether I'm going to keep this long term. I have to decide that. I do really like it, and I like it better than the Astron that I got. But it doesn't have that feeling. This is the end of my quest for the all black watch. I was hoping it would. I'm wondering if I'd feel a little different if it was steel rather than titanium. I can't. I'm trying to get around the feel of titanium, but it feels cheap to me. It feels like it's not. It doesn't have that nice weight, you know. And it's kind of interesting because I've come to prefer watches that aren't super heavy. Like I like this watch, but it still has this feeling like this is a chunk of metal. This feels there's some weight to it. Maybe part of that's the movement, but it's really the steel. This one, it feels a tad on the heavy side. I mean, it's comfortable, it's fine, but it's a little heavy. So I'm not saying I want something like this, which is really more than twice the weight of it. But it feels light. You can't tell it from looking at it, but maybe you can get a sense. The bracelet's it's very comfortable. I mean, it's like feathers. You know, it's very comfortable on the wrist. There's nothing to complain about. The build quality, the bracelet quality. Citizen made a good product here. You know, the Attesa line is a really nice mid-tier line, a very affordable mid-tier line. So I can recommend this watch for somebody who wants something like this. I love the layout too. I love this. I've seen Citizen do this before, where it has the normal 3 chrono dots, but then it has this. I don't know. It just adds a little something. The dial is it's not too busy. It's definitely a nice, sophisticated chrono look. It's much more toned down compared to Jeff's ProMaster Sky, which is a pilot's watch. So it's a little bit more dressy looking, a little bit more minimalist for a chrono, at least compared to something like that. But it's really, you know, and as I'm sitting here looking at this watch, I haven't worn it in a couple days. I'm thinking, wow, I should really give this a shot because it's a pretty cool watch. And you know, the one thing I was saying to Jeff that I struggle with is that I have these 4 pieces that I really love. I have these 2, right? And I have 2 Breitlings and 2 Omegas. And they're all great, and I rotate. This is my rotation, okay? This is my rotation. And I have a couple beaters. The Orient Revolver, the blue dial, which is extremely rare at this point. So that's kind of my primary beater, I guess you could say. But I also have the Black Monster. So that's the collection that any new watch comes into. I've decided I'm going to sell the Perpetual, so that's a whole other thing. And when I bring in a new watch, you know, it's not a beater. No all-black watch should be a beater, because they do get scraped up. But it's competing with these 4, right? And what ends up happening is I get a new watch, and I put it on, and I enjoy it, and I'm like, wow, this is a cool watch. This is what happened with the Perpetual. And then I start missing these 4. and then so it has to compete in the rotation, and for the most part, it's going to be hard to do that unless I get a high tier 3 watch, you know, in terms of the quality of the piece. I'm not just talking about the price, but the equivalent quality. So it would be interesting, what would actually compete with these four? What could I get that would actually compete? It would either have to be something that's very different, like for instance, if I got a really nice vintage bicompact watch on leather. And that's kind of what I was hoping the Perpetual would be. I kind of had a feeling that I was going to sell the Perpetual before I bought it, but I was curious, so I did get it. I do really like the Perpetual. It's a hard-to-beat watch for the price range. I mean, these cost $400 or $500. But it isn't quite right for me. But if I was to find, you know, this is another kind of white whale for me, is the like a leather strap bicompact vintage watch. And I'm just gonna, you know, I guess I'll know it when I see it. And I'll just take my time with that and get it when I can. But the other thing that also is missing from my collection is a classic black dial, black bezel diver. You know, I'm clearly a dive sports watch guy. I don't feel like I need a dress watch. Any of these can serve as a dress watch. I'm not a shirt and tie guy. But as far as the stylistic tones that I like, that's what's missing. And I did have the black dial, black bezel version of this Seamaster, which I kind of miss sometimes. But I also wanted to diversify. So one of the watches that's you know, possibly the next significant purchase I would get might be a Seiko Marine Master. I think it would look really nice. I think it would actually hold its own with those four. It might not quite stand on the same level, but it would be close enough. It would be there with them. So I don't know. I mean, this is an all black watch. It would, you know, it should, and it's different enough. So we'll see. I'm gonna give it another shot. If I decide to sell it, no big deal. You know, this is part of the hobby. You know, I think that it's much more relaxing if you buy a watch and accept the possibility that you're going to sell it, even probability eventually. 5-10 years from now, I might not own any of these watches. Who knows? I might have sold them all and bought in a Rolex, just like Simon Crane wants me to. You know, but I mean, who knows? Who knows? Or maybe I will be like, what was I thinking? And or I'll be homeless and just only have this, right? That would be a really nice homeless watch, and somebody would mug me for it, and sell it at a pawn shop for $40. I don't know. Who knows? But anyway, so yeah, you know, there could be like a term for that. Like how would I describe that? But when you bring a watch into the fold, into the stable, will it stand up? Because it's not a beater. Like a beater has its, you know, I almost use the term beater broadly. It's a watch that you buy for the fun of it. That you don't, it's not really one of your key pieces. It's a secondary piece. But these four are my rotation pieces. You know, anything that's going to stand muster to these, you know, anything that's it has to stand muster. That's exactly what I was trying to get at. And at this point, it's hard, you know, unless I'm going to. There are some long-term Grail pieces that I'd like to get someday, but not for several years. Like for instance, I'd like to get a Breguet Transatlantique at some point, or something similar to that. Maybe a Chopard Mille Miglia. That's another one I'd like to get. Yeah, you know, Breitling Navitimer is another long term. Maybe a Omega Planet Ocean chronograph. They're kind of big. So those would all definitely hold their own and even be the centerpieces. They'd be a step up. These are all what I would call tier 4 watches. They're within that range of watch, the tier 4, and it's not that I have to get a tier 5 to take it up a notch, because you know tiers they're just price ranges really. But I think there are subtle qualities of subtle noticeable qualities that differentiate watches of different quote-unquote levels or tiers. And when it's hard to get around that. It's hard to, like, you can't, if you have that palette developed, let's say I buy this one, it's a totally cool piece, but it doesn't have the same sort of subtle levels of subtle qualities of fit and finish. Not even going into the movement that these watches have. It just doesn't have it. The design work, etc. So actually, one thing I've noticed about movements is with the more tier 2 movements. Actually, it's stopped. You can't really see it, but one thing I've noticed is the exactitude of the date window. That's kind of there now. It's finally focused. That was gonna. You can see it was almost at 12 o'clock when it stopped on the 22nd to 23rd. So that's not really a good example, but on a higher quality piece, it's just perfectly centered and aligned. There's no sense of it not quite fitting just right. It's just a higher level of exactitude. You shouldn't, if you're getting a watch like this, there shouldn't be a little. I'm shocked that somebody put up on one of the Facebook groups pictures of a Patek Philippe Nautilus where the 12 o'clock markers were not aligned properly, and it's theoretically not a replica. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know how you can make and sell a watch for $40,000 and not have everything be absolutely perfect. That to me is kind of ridiculous, and it definitely makes me lose a little bit of respect for Mr. Philippe. So yeah, I'm just kind of rambling on now. So there you have it. There's the Citizen Attesa. I will put the number. Well, I don't even remember. I'll put it in the comment field down below what model number this is. Again, I might be selling this eventually along with the Perpetual chronograph and the Hamilton Railroad. So let me know if you're interested. Just send me an email. Otherwise, I'll be putting them up on Watch You Seek. But I'll wait on this. I'm gonna wear it a little bit more and see how I feel. Definitely a cool watch. All right, later, folks. High quality metal. It's almost like a high quality aluminum in the sense that it's very light, but it's very strong. Titanium tends to be they tend to scratch really easy. It's soft, but it's very, very light. This one is coated with Duratect, which is Citizen's high-end coating that protects it. So this is a not PVD. This is a DLC coating with Duratect in titanium. So this is a very, very light watch. It's under 100 grams. I don't know the exact weight. I think the listing said 95 grams. By comparison, that is, I think my Breitling Blackbird's probably about 200 grams. It's a heavy. This is a very heavy watch. A little too heavy actually for my preference. I like a watch like the Seamaster. The Seamaster is about 165 grams, I think. That feels like the perfect weight. In the 140 to 180 range is ideal. But I'm open to whatever. So it's very light, and titanium is, what it feels like to me. It feels like hard plastic. It doesn't feel like metal. I know it is metal, and maybe a steel, like a silver steel, would feel more like metal. But this to me feels like a ceramic or plastic watch. And actually it makes me realize that one of my all-time favorite all-black watches is the Omega Dark Side of the... Alright folks, this is a little video about a new watch that I purchased recently. from none other than Jeffrey McMahon. I vultured Jeffrey. I didn't intentionally vulture Jeffrey, but what the term vulture is a lexicon term that Jeff and I have joked around. It's specifically about when you're putting something on eBay and people just wait around for you to drop low enough where you get desperate enough to sell. And Jeff made me an offer I couldn't refuse for this Citizen Black Attesa. And so I bought it, and I got it about a week ago, I think. Yeah, late last week. I think the day after here. And there's a ton of them, and they tend to be with Citizen. They're Echo Drive. This is an Echo Drive watch, meaning it's a solar powered or a light powered quartz. I don't think there's no battery that needs to be changed. I don't know about the servicing of a watch like this, but it's a higher technology, right? It's a 21st century watch. This one is made out of titanium, and I am not a big fan of titanium, and this actually watch hasn't really changed my opinion, to be honest. Titanium, for those of you who aren't aware, I'm not a metallurgist, so I can't give you a really technical description, but it's a very high before Christmas, maybe. Anyways, so yeah, this isn't a proper review. I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but I wanted to show you the Attesa and talk a little bit about it. It's an interesting thing because this is a Japanese domestic market watch. This is a watch that you can't buy in the United States except through the internet. And there are a ton of Citizens and Seikos and probably Orients out there that fit that category. They tend to be, there's a lot that are more in the quote-unquote mid-tier range. These ones are sort of in the lower mid-tier range, the $500 to $1,000 range, which you could almost call like entry mid-tier.